Hello, good morning, and grüß Gott, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say welcome for another topic in our webinar series, Hopsteiner Forum. And today with me here, live on stage in Mainburg, is my colleague, Mathis Geser. And we do a joint presentation. So I have a part, and he also has a part in the middle of our presentation slides. And today, our topic is regarding the characteristics and advantages of a liquid hop aroma product compared to hop pellets. But before we start, I want to introduce my colleague, Mathis Geser. Mathis is a real brewer, so he did in 2006 an apprenticeship in Regensburg in a, let me say, more or less small, traditional craft brewery in town. So he knows everything, also the manual things of brewing. And then later on, he studied brewing science at the Hochschule Weinstefan Triesdorf. So it was the first year together with Martin Kottenthaler, Professor Kottenthaler. And meanwhile, in between his studies, he was here working for Hopsteiner in our technical division, responsible for brewing trials and so on. And later on, he joined Hopsteiner after his bachelor thesis, starting with activities in sales department, and parallel, he was responsible for the pilot breweries that we are running here in Mainburg on our place. And more involved in brewing, more and more in research and development. He's now 100% directly responsible for our projects that we have regarding new product development, regarding new varieties coming from the breeding program, and also in cooperation with our customers, he's doing brewing trials together with them to develop new beers. And that is his job. And now, Mathis, it's yours to introduce me.
Well, we've got Frank Pfeiffer here, a brewer for I don't know how many years. Might give hints to his age, so I'm not going to say anything about that. He also is a brewer who first did an apprenticeship way back, and then did his degree at the TU Munich to become a brewing engineer, I guess. And by now, after many years in the industry as a director of a brewery, a bigger brewery around Munich, he became our technical director and successor to Willy Mitter. And yeah, he's here for, I think, 11 years, 9 years? Yeah, 1 year after I did my practical semester, right? Yeah, for 9 years. He's now our technical director, and he's gonna start the presentation. I'm gonna join in again when it comes to the brewing trials. So Frank, stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mathis. Very kind. So, ladies and gentlemen, our topic today is about hop aroma product, and that is not dedicated to, let me say, a hop oil product that's established and well known in the industry. That's something very special, a new development, a new, completely new appearance, completely new combination and situation that we have with this liquid hop aroma product. And I want to introduce it to you. And it's the second time now. I did it last week as well as the EBC in Lille, and now it's yours to listen. And later on also you have the chance to ask us about this product, about the presentation itself, and so on, to get deeper insights. And I think it's very interesting, and please follow me over the next 30-35 minutes. So let's start with a view on the world beer market. We all know there's a part, we call it craft beer segment, and it's around maybe 2.5% of the beers produced worldwide. People say it's 2%, other people say it's 3%, but maybe something in between, maybe it's also 3%, but that doesn't matter this time, because the majority is still in the standard beer segment, where the lager beers dominates, and that is around 97% of the world beer production. And with a look back over the last decade, brewers, the industry, scientists were very hard concentrated and focused on the craft beer segment, talking about dry hopping, talking about other things on what happens when you do dry hopping, especially. And the focus was not on the 97%. That's still the big part of the cake, as we can see here on this slide. So what does it mean, the standard beer segment? I put together some keynotes to describe how these big brewers are thinking and what they are doing on the market. So we are talking about big brewing groups, big breweries, and also big brands. So these breweries have normally worldwide a high degree of automation. That means everything is standardized in the processes and also in the recipes. And normally there's no space on the left and on the right side to change something easily. So it's for them, it's a horrible act when they are talking about dry hopping big fermenters with 5,000 or 10,000 hectoliters. That's what we know. And also the costs, they have a very strong cost awareness. They look on the cost and to change something. First thing, what they do is to ask what it costs, especially in terms of euro per hectoliter in the process. And these guys are also looking for new products, for new solutions, for ready-to-use solutions in the hop sector. So if there's something that makes sense in terms of application, in terms of usability, then could be nice for them to integrate it in an easy way in their standardized processes and also into their automatization system. We know that beer bitterness they want to achieve is mandatory. That is why they use hops in different ways. It is in terms of pellets, extracts, or downstream products. That's state of the art. But the hop aroma, that is something that is, for some brewers, it's nice to have. For some, it's a must because they want to be different on the market position with their product in comparison to the competitors. And so there are a lot of pros and cons and argumentations. We find some want to avoid the hop aroma because they think it's hard to find a way to produce a stable hop aroma with always the same attributes and parameters. And some others say, okay, for us it's on the point of costs, it's too much money you have to spend to get a decent or a good and constant hoppy note on a lager beer. So to remember all of you about what we are talking, that is today regarding late hopping applications in the brewhouse. It happens in the brewhouse and not later on in the cold block. It's not dry hopping. And how does it behave? It's easy to describe. The more earlier you add the hops, the more or less is the transfer of the hop aroma components later on into the final product. That means the most volatile components of the hop oil are evaporated, especially when you add it at the beginning in the kettle, the first edition. You find normally nothing remaining in the final beer. Later on, close to lockout, there is a partially evaporation that happens, especially when you have to boil for 5 or 10 minutes. You have consequently high losses of all aroma components, also in linalool. And especially when you go to the whirlpool, you have a standardized point of addition that you can follow with every batch, with every brew. And that is the best point to add hops for aromatization in the brew house. What does it mean, adding these hops into the whirlpool? We know that it's not very simple. We have a lot of different varieties with different hop aroma or hop oil concentrations, with different hop aroma compositions in between these certain aroma components. And there's also a very high deviation in between crop years. And that makes it not so easy to have a standardized application of, for example, pellets when adding them to the whirlpool. The extraction time in the whirlpool is also limited because normally after 40 minutes whirlpool rest, brewers start with the cooling process, and then it's more or less a separation of the hop material that's in the drop on the bottom of the whirlpool that is then separated from the liquid form from the wort. And we also know that in the whirlpool process itself, the material has to separate. It has to participate to the bottom area of the whirlpool. That is the effect of the whirlpool. So when you add pellets, it's relatively fast that the pellets go into solution, and then they're also separated on the ground, and so the contact and the mixing in the liquid on top is not given anymore, or is reduced. So all in all, to achieve a noticeable hop aroma, costs are often the limiting factor. And when we are talking about hop aroma in form of late hopping, we have linalool as a leading hop substance here in-house at Hopsteiner. So all over the years, we found out that calculation on linalool and also finding back linalool in beer is the best choice, the best solution to form our recommendations regarding late hopping hop application. So that works very well, and that's also something I want to demonstrate now. How do we integrate this in our calculation, and what does it mean in terms of cost, especially when we have different varieties. Comparison here on the right hand. That is a calculation that I made. That was from crop 22, 7 European hop varieties. They have, as we can see, very wide range of linalool in milligram per 100 gram. And when we calculate on linalool, we have to know how much is inside, and that is how we find out the required amount of T90 that we have to add into the whirlpool. So our approach is to have a good value of 50 microgram linalool per liter in the final product in beer. That is something that is good, noticeable, that is not overdosed, that is also with a very good and pleasant effect on your taste, on palate, and also on the stability of the beer on shelf, because linalool always has a positive impact on the shelf life of the beer. Utilization of linalool in the whirlpool, our Hopsteiner average value is around 50%. So all over the years, all over the beers that we analyzed, and where we know the recipe, is around 50%. In the book of hops, it's between 30 and 60%, so we are not that far away, something in the middle. And we also have to calculate wort losses. The more pellets you add to the whirlpool, the more losses you have, and that is also the money that you are losing when you do late hopping with pellets. I was looking for different sources, but I found one here from Professor Nazis, and he was talking about an approximately value of 0.9% wort losses per 100 gram hop pellets per hectoliter. So on the right hand, the table is calculated regarding this values: 50 microgram linalool in beer, 50% utilization, and 0.9% losses per 100 gram per hectoliter. And we see the required amount of T90, especially for the Hallertau varieties, Saphir, Hersbrucker, and Mittelfrüh. They are very close together, around 200 gram per hectoliter, and that's a lot of material, because you can imagine when you have a 500 hectoliter brewhouse, how much pellets you have to add, and in a definitely short period of time when you make the transfer knockout from the kettle into the whirlpool. It's also something that needs a good equipment to perform it in this time. Akoya was in this crop here on the very high side of linalool. You see that's very linalool intensive variety, and out of this, the amount that is required is only a fourth of the amount that we need from the varieties I mentioned at the beginning. Kalista is in the middle. Then we have a Slovenian Celaya is also in the middle, and it doesn't make sense to use the Saaz hops for for a late hopping application where you want to introduce a certain aroma impression that is regarding the concentration of linalool in the final beer. So 900 grams per hectoliter, that is impossible to remove it out of the whirlpool to avoid problems all over the other processes following in the fermenter. On the right side, we see the wort losses, and for the first 3 varieties, it's approximately, let me say, 2%. And when you do a very roughly calculation, where you take the required P90 together with the wort losses in euro, it's something in between €3 and €3.50 that you have to spend per hectoliter when you want to achieve a late hopping aroma in your beer. And that is definitely, when we compare this hop cost to the other costs you have for the wort production in the brewhouse, definitely on the very high side. And that could be also a reason that a lot of brewers do not follow this route and leave out aromatization by late hopping. So now coming to the invention that we made here in our company in Mainburg. And here on the first slide on the right hand, you see there's something in a liquid form with a yellow golden color. And that is what we found more or less by chance when we used CO2 extract at the beginning. Then we removed the iso-alpha acids or the alpha acids. We have both options. And the final product then was homogenized in water. So that is a hop extract homogenized in water with a ratio of 50:50. And that is definitely on a very high concentration of extract. And fortunately, or we were surprised about the result, that is very good flowable. It's very close to water, very good flowability, and it goes very easy into solution. So when you add it to the whirlpool, for example, or even only to warm water, you see that's a very, very fast and good complete distribution of this emulsion in the liquid. And we are able to make a standardization to a certain linalool concentration that makes it easy for the brewer to achieve a constant linalool value in the final beer with always the same amount of material he has to add to the whirlpool. So that's about what we found. We have little to no sensorial bitterness, so we don't need this backwards calculation when you change your pellet addition in the whirlpool because of deviations from one crop year to another, or when you go to another variety. That is a lot of effort, and that also needs to be tested when you do it once, how the beer is later on regarding the bitterness in BU and maybe also in the concentration of the iso-alpha acids. So it looks very easy, this application, because it's more or less dedicated to the essential oils and to the beta acids we have in the base material. And then after homogenization, we have this liquid form. So here's the 2 pictures from the first trials that we did. On the left side, left hand, you see water on the bottom, and on top, that is we can call it aroma-like extract. And afterwards, after 5 minutes, we have this emulsion, and this emulsion is long-term stable. And we even have batches from the beginning of our tests, years old, and they are still in the same form. They are still stable. We have no phase separation. We have no precipitation of material to the bottom, and that makes it also applicable for worldwide applications in brew houses in the brewery. When we produce it, we have also, let me say, a very decent temperature increase. That is, we start with maybe 20 degrees, and after 5 minutes, we have 50 degrees centigrade. So it's not on boiling temperature. It's nothing where we evaporate hop oil components, where we change something in the structure of the material. So very, very easy handling, and it's also very easy when you know how to do it. Then it's very easy to produce. So now I give the word to my colleague, because he's talking about the brewing trial that we did over the last 2 years. Several brewing trials, several setups with different materials. We also had to learn how to use it, how to make a good comparison with pellets that we can give good recommendations to our customers. Please, Mathis.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, not sure if anybody hears me, but yeah, should work. As Frank said, we did a lot of trials with these new products, especially in comparison with other extracts or T90. So there were various trials with different varieties, with different different dilutions of the extract, and by that we came to the conclusion that the 50-50 ratio is quite suitable, since the concentration is really high up and the yields are well in the whirlpool as well. That was the first step. We didn't really care too much about the variety we used. It was just about the solution rates or the yields of linalool mostly as the lead component in the whirlpool. All the monoterpenes, sesquiterpenes will be lost throughout the process anyway. Even if we can determine some of them in the wort, they will be lost latest in the young beer in the tank. There won't be any terpenes or monosesquiterpenes detectable. So from what we've learned from these trials, we've set up this trial setup for the Pilsner beer style with 12.5 Plato, target IBUs of 28, 30 roughly. We used very classic, since it's the workhorse and the most common yeast in German breweries, at least the W3470. Traditional cold fermentation, 7 degree, pre-rise to 9. After that, maturation at 11 roughly. Yeah, and all beers were filtrated to see if filtration has any effect on the aroma components as well. So we really get the result of the linalool yield in the final beer. If we would have lost out, if we would have left out filtration, that might have led to some problems in the calculations. Afterwards, we did analytical comparison and for fresh and aged beers. We did a 6-month warm storage trial in-house at 20 degrees and analyzed hop bitter, aroma compounds, aging indicators, and did several tastings. About these results, Frank will talk later on. For this trial, we've used T90 and liquid aroma extract from one Hallertauer variety. It was the same base material that we've produced the pellets as well as the liquid aroma extract out of, to have to get as comparable as we could. Now I'm gonna talk about the hopping regime of those two beers. I mean, you see, we've to reach those 100. In this case, again, Frank talked about 50 microgram per liter, which is a reasonable amount of linalool in a lager beer. 100 microgram is kind of at the upper level for a classic lager. If we want to go for a hoppy lager, we might even go farther than that, like 120, 150 microgram. But in this case, we decided to go for 100 microgram to see the effects, to see what can be solved, which other components besides linalool could be solved. So we went for the high end in that case. To reach those 100 microgram per liter in the pellet beer, we needed to add 25% of those total IBUs in the whirlpool as in form of pellets, P90 or T90. And the bitterness, the 28, the rest of the bitterness, like the 22 something IBUs were added in the beginning of boil. In case of the liquid aroma extract, we don't need to consider any bitter impact really in the whirlpool. So we could give all 100% of the total IBU we aim for with T90 at the beginning of the boil, and just calculated based on the linalool content of the product, of the liquid aroma extract, a dosage of 100 microgram per liter based on a aroma yield or linalool yield of 100% in that case. So that's basically what we did. Classic base beer. Yeah, and that's the analysis, the product analysis of those two Hallertau variety products. We see that, well, T90 don't have any ISOs usually, or at least on a very low level. Alpha acids 7.3. We don't have any significant alphas in the liquid aroma extract. Betas are a bit increased, but their impact on bitterness is way lower than it would be with alpha or especially iso-alpha acids. So that is quite all right. Total oil content is, yeah, you see the difference. I mean, it's almost factor 10 here. And that's what, yeah, kind of mirrors to the dosage we need. Since the yield is for LAE, liquid aroma extract is roughly 100%. And you see that the dosage rate is also just this factor of 10, 10 times the quantity of the weight of pellets that you wish to use with the total. Yeah, that's pretty much what we did. Afterwards, yeah, we analyzed everything. We did tastings. Yeah, Frank is going to take over now again. Yeah, give you a short overview of the results. Perfect.
So next step, we want to have a look on the results. The one is more important thing. If you can compare both products, are there deviations? Are there positive effects or negative effects coming with this very intensive trials with the dosage of the calculated linalool concentration of 100 micrograms in the final product. So these are the results that we performed in our HHV laboratory. That's an internal analysis, internal method. We call it HHV 46. That is an extension to the EBC 9.49. So there are much more components analyzed with the same technique, but we get more insight about a wider range of aroma components, which is very important. So as you can see here regarding the terpene alcohols, and that is what we are looking on first, that is calculated yield of linalool in both years, and they're very close to the 100 micrograms per liter. So the calculation was then confirmed by the analytical results close to 100. So we are also very excited about our first calculation and then later what we found. But it was not the first trial that we performed, it a lot of time before to find out what is our brewhouse utilization regarding how does our working work, especially with pellets and then later with the high utilization of the liquid product. So the other ones, that is veranol, terpenol, citronellol, they are on a much lower concentration. It's only citronellol that is scratching the aroma threshold of 9 to 10 microgram per liter. And as we know, linalool, the aroma threshold is around 20 microgram per liter. That differs a little bit and depends on the matrix, on the beer type. But as we see, we were far over this threshold, and there is a noticeable hoppy note, noticeable hop aroma in the beer. Veranol, terpenol were below the threshold, but all in all these terpene alcohols can have a synergistic effect so that they work together to perform this hoppy, lime-like little citrusy note in the beer. So going from the terpene alcohols then to the esters on left hand, with the esters, they were all below the aroma threshold, the individual aroma threshold of the components. Maybe methylgeronate was on the edge for the liquid aroma extract beer, but all the others were on the low side. So after this look on the esters, we can say, okay, this aroma impression that we have in the beer is more or less dedicated to terpene alcohol, more or less dedicated there to linalool. As we said at the beginning, as we found in all our research and development works all over the years, that is what we got again right in these trials. So the mono and sesquiterpenes, terpenes, that's a very important thing. It's not only that they were below the detection limit, and it was clear to see, and also with different other trials, that they are more or less eliminated during production. Especially when you have a whirlpool addition, it starts there that this high volatile components like the penines, like myrcene, limonene, and terpinolene, they disappear a lot by evaporation. In the whirlpool, also later on evaporation with the CO2 that is rising up in the fermentation process, and the not that volatile fraction, that is the sesquiterpene fraction presented by beta-caryophyllene and humulene, they find a way out of the beer by adaptation to maybe yeast cells, to trap particles, and that's also a way that they get removed during beer production in the cold block. We were surprised that we found this, let me say, zero level, the zero component levels in the beer before filtration. So it was done in fermentation, maturation, and the filter this time has nothing to do with the removement of this mono and sesquiterpenes. So all in all, they don't have an impact on the taste, on the flavor of the beer. Having a look on the total aging indicators, so we did the analytical things in Weinstefan, and we got a feedback there with the fresh beers, and then later on with the aged beers, 6 months at ambient temperatures. It was more or less in the bureau temperatures that were definitely over the 20 degrees centigrade. And for a good comparison, I choose the recommendation of Professor Fritz Jakob from Research Center Weinstefan from the past, where he defined a minimum and maximum value for fresh beer, and also he defined a minimum and maximum value for an aged beer. And we were with both beers, fresh and aged, at the minimum levels or below the minimum levels. So we had a good beer quality. Thank you, Tomatis. That was also, yes, the impression that we got from the tastings and also from this analysis, that it was good produced and also good. There was a good comparison. So at the beginning with the fresh beers, we see slightly advantage on the liquid aroma extract beer, and then it turned a little bit to slightly advantage to the T90 beers, because this value was then aged a little bit lower than in the liquid aroma extract beer. But no problem, nothing that we can say there's something serious going on, that the liquid aroma extract beer has a bad influence on the formation of aging indicators. Going to aroma quality and bitter quality, that was done in-house with our Hauptsteiner team. And at the beginning, the fresh form, for the aroma quality, we see slightly advantages for the T90 beer, but after 6 months, it was the other way around a little bit. And we can also see there on the columns that there was an influence coming from the aging, because the rating, the value was lower than in the fresh beer, but that's normal. That's nothing that's very special. That happens, and that shows that these beers are aging and also changing the aroma quality in the same way as they change the bitter quality. At the beginning, it was on the same level, a little bit over 5 out of 6, and then after 6 months, we had slightly advantages there for the liquid aroma extract beer. So aged beers showing slightly advantages for the liquid aroma extract form. But I don't want to get deeper in and find out more interpretation, because that was just in our panel here at Hopsteiner. So we took the chance to send the beer out to an institute and did a DLG tasting after the 6 months at ambient temperature, and the results were very close together on the same level, around 4.5 DLG points, and that's still good after 6 months. There are other results around the 4.0 or lower after 6 months in other beers, in big brands as well, but that is also a good a good moment to say again thank you to Mattes, because that also comes from a good and fine and clean working in the brewery. I also put together some other analytical values on the right hand of the table. That's the IBU, a little bit higher for the T90, as the iso-alpha acids were on the same level. That comes from the from other bitter components added with the T90 in the whirlpool. They have an influence on the spectrophotometric analytics, analyzing the bitter units, but don't have an impact on the iso-alpha acid concentration in the beer. The foam is also very close together, not that best all in all, could be higher, but it could be also good comparable that we say, okay, there are not big deviations. And we all know the NIBEM method is highly bounded to some, let me say, external problems and failures that can happen. So it looks very good. For the total polyphenols, that's also clear that with the P90 addition in the whirlpool, there come a lot of polyphenols into the beer and into the wort. They stay in the beer more or less if you do not have a treatment at the filter, a stabilization treatment, for example, with PVPP. That is what we didn't do. It was just filtered with very core filter sheets to remove hazy particles. A high polyphenol value in finished beer could be something that tends to perform more aging, more aging aroma components later on the shelf. But it's just a tendency. I don't want to go deeper and start an interpretation here. That's not fair. A further comparison of the situation on the shelf during the time of the beer has, we stopped because there was a big deviation in the SO2 concentration. We know the SO2 is coming from the yeast. It's the higher the SO2 is, the more taste stability I can perform. SO2 works against aging, the formation of aging components. It gives the beer an additional anti-oxidative power. But the differences from 8.1 to 4.7, that is far too much to find an interpretation. We used the same yeast from the same batch, and also the time in between we used the yeast was not weeks. It was very close together that we produced the beer, but we cannot find a reason for this deviation. I was then a little bit surprised regarding the concentration of the heavy metals iron and copper in both beers. I estimated a little bit higher values for the T90 because by this very high amount of material, of leaf material coming in with the pellet, I thought about higher values than with the liquid aroma extract, but that was not the fact. So we didn't found additional extraction of heavy metals by the application of pellets compared to the application of the liquid aroma extract. So all in all, it was good, a very good comparison. And as a result, I can say that both beers were more or less on the same level of quality, even after 6 months. And that was, for us, the result that we expected, to be honest. But we can say now at the end of this presentation that both products are comparable and that we can also be focused on the positive side of this liquid aroma extract in comparison to the T90. And we have seen that the yields of linalool were found back not only in this trial, also in multiple preliminary tests that we did before and afterwards, and that will be close at the end of the day at 100%. And that makes sense in terms of calculation, in terms of how much material I need for my beer to achieve a certain concentration of linalool that is impressed to a certain late hopping character. So what we learned is that we are able to reduce wort losses, and that's also when we're talking about wort losses, you have material there on the bottom of the whirlpool after cooling that needs to find home, and often this material is sent to the spent material from the lauter tun. When you send it to farmers are not that happy with this hop addition because it's still bitter and the cows do not like the bitterness. So I think that's also something to reduce material that needs home, and it's also more sustainable to talk about or to use this liquid aroma extract form also with a look on the reduced amount of material that you have to transport. It's only 1/10 of the material. That's also costs for transportation and for storage. We can standardize it. That's also an option that we have. When we choose different extracts, we can calculate it in advance how the linalool concentration will be at the end, and compared to hop pellets cost savings, I mentioned 3.5, 3.2 euro at the beginning for, let me say, well-known standard Hallertau varieties. Definitely we will be in the cost of use below this value with the liquid form of aroma product. The handling is very convenient because it's water soluble. Also, when you clean it, you can clean the equipment, the pumps, the dosing vessels just with hot water. That's all, and then you will see that it's completely disappeared and washed off the surfaces. That makes it also that you do not have any additional treatment in the whirlpool. That there are sticky materials sitting on the wall, and that makes handling easy, and also the dosing is easy because of the very good flowability. So that's for now everything on this invention that we can present, and let's see what happens in the future. And there will be more discussions on the market. There will also be discussions now, I hope. And I got an information from a colleague that the sound is very bad. Is it true?
It was, Tino already mentioned. We need to apologize for the technical complications we've had in between. Sound seemed to be a bit off, but for that we've got the question area now where everybody could ask or can ask his questions, and if they didn't understand anything due to sound issues, they can also add their questions, and we'll try to take care of that, right?
Yeah. So please, now you have the chance to ask us, post your questions and comments. I really appreciate it, and to give an answer on this.
It's coming from? Okay.
Yeah, now we receive questions from your side, how it works. And there was something coming in. Which aroma varieties can we expect to see? And so far, we are working on a generic side that we have a recipe. We have definitely a recipe where we integrate different bitter hops, extracts from bitter hops, and also to balance. Ein Mikro ist aus. No?
Apologies for the sound issues. I'm going to hand over my mic to Frank so you can understand his answers to your questions. Kein Sound, generell?
Kein Sound. That's life. Life is life. And unfortunately, we have no connection. We have no sound connection anymore. We don't know what happens. And we are reading your comments and your questions. We have your contact, we have your email address, and we will reply, we will answer to your questions right afterwards in every individual case.
Sound funktioniert, alles gut. Das kriegt uns bei der Team.
Okay.
Sound seems to be all right. We've received a notice. Sounds fine. So with everything you just said.
Okay, then
right.
then we go back to the show. We have an internal problem just with one device outside. So again, let's have a look on the request coming from Hans, and he's asking which aroma varieties can we expect to see. We will be focused on CO2 extract coming from different varieties. So we have a recipe where we combine different extracts in order to have a standardized product with always the same attributes at the end of the day. And as you can imagine, aroma hops extraction is something that is, let me say, something that is not usual. We do not usually extract aroma hops to make CO2 extract, and also then you have a low alpha value, you have high costs on the extract, and that is something, it's not foreseen for the future. But if customer coming with definitely higher demand on this, especially on one variety, we can discuss everything. What we see is that we can produce this liquid aroma extract from every material that comes out of our CO2 extraction.
Next question.
From
Brian, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
What's the shelf life of LAE compared to pellets? Is it comparable? Do we need to think of something? What's the storage conditions?
Yes, honestly, we are at the beginning of our development, and we are now on the safe side that after 1 year nothing happens badly on the LAE. So the shelf life is in this stage, in this early stage, is lower than the shelf life for the pellets. But it's also possible to produce this product on demand with a very short term in between the order and the dispatch, and also the application in the brewery. There is nothing that you have to put in your stock, and that is what you then use in 1 or 2 or 3 years later on. That's something that can be done and also provide very fresh.
And we expect the shelf life in the future to be comparable, I guess, to pellets, but that's something that needs to be confirmed by storage trials, obviously. And since the product is not as old as the storage shelf life for pellets, which is, I think, 4 or 5 years by now, for 4090. So we will know in 4 years if shelf life of LAE can be compared to pellets. What would be the cost reduced using LAE? Heike asks.
Heike, there will be a cost reduce, definitely. There will be a high cost reduce, but I'm not here on stage and talking about prices. It's just technical information, and the information I can open and send to you. But we will see there's definitely a cost reduce in the cost per hectoliter that then starts to make sense to create late hopping like character on lager beers.
Great. And one other question: will you be able to send us the presentation of the webinar? Yeah, sure. You will receive the presentation after the webinar, and if any further questions pop up, you can just contact us by the email, and we will take care to answer all your questions afterwards as well, obviously.
That's right. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, Matthias, now it looks good. Excuse me again for these problems that we had with the sound, and I go back through
there's more questions.
there are more questions. It was a little bit mixed up here by complaints regarding the sound, but in between there are also some questions from other customers. And let me go to this one here, Matthias. Can you read?
Thanks for the very good presentation. Yeah, you're welcome. Frank did a very good job.
Well.
I would like to ask if there is a possibility of using this liquid hop aroma in the area of animal feed additives. Does the LAE have any advantage over the BRHE? If yes, is this supported by EFSA regulation? Thanks for your response in advance. From Abdul Quadri OPB, I think. Complex question.
That's very complex, so I have to read again.
Basically, can you compare LAE to BRHE for animal feed?
Oh, it was not ours to form something that is comparable with beta-rich hop extract, and that is BRHE. And there are beta acids involved in this problem, but we have the focus on the aroma. So beta is something that is existing there. That is also something that maybe has a function in this liquid product, but it's not foreseen to use it as a substitution for the bitter-rich hop extract. And regarding the EFSA regulation, that's something I have to talk to our legal colleague, quality manager, to find an answer. But we will contact you and send you a clear answer to all of your questions that you form here on the board.
Another question: how must we label the LAE? That's from Jose Luis Olmedo.
That is the same as you have to label, for example, an ISO extract. So it's fact that this comes from a pre-production process, that is the formation of iso alpha acids when we produce IKE. So IKE is produced, then the iso alpha acids are removed, and this is more or less the remaining material that needs to be handled in a certain way. And also there's several other intermediate processes to get the possibility for the homogenization with a constant and long stability. But that's a fact. It's not a hop pellet, and it also depends on where you are, on which regulation you work and on which regulation you label your beers.
Yeah, I think that's about all the questions so far.
Yep.
Like we already said, thank you for the kind attention, and if there's any questions left, just shoot a mail. You will receive the presentation. You can check back on the presentation, see if any questions are open. Let us know, and we will take dire care of that.
Yes, contact us or contact me. And also regarding samples, we are able to provide small samples now, and that if you want to test something, we can discuss about how to handle the material and how is the addition and which road do you have to follow to produce an excellent beer out of this new product. So one information at the end of this session. So we will follow up with the next webinar, and on the 4th of July in English and on the 5th of July in German language. And it's regarding optimization of non-alcoholic beers with certain hop products. That was also something that we released in the form of paper some months ago. And this is done by my colleague Sandro, who's not here today. And Sandro, together with the guest referent from University Weinstefan, they will do it also together in a joint conversation. Okay, that's now for today, for today's Hopsteiner Forum regarding the presentation of this new invention in form of a liquid aroma extract. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day. A lot of you will now start thinking. I think a lot of questions will arise later on. We are happy to receive it and to get an answer. Thank you.